Hello, my name is Stephen Kuntz, and today we're at the battlefield on top of Allegheny Mountain, where the Battle of Allegheny was fought in the winter of 1861-62. It was actually, I think, fought in the early spring of 1862. This is Allegheny Mountain forms a boundary between the state of Virginia and the state of West Virginia today. But in that period of time, it was all Virginia. The Union Army was pushing eastward, trying to get into the Shenandoah Valley. The Confederate troops were trying to keep them out. After a series of battles further west of here, the Confederates fell back in the fall of 1861 to this mountaintop. There were 1,800 Confederates, mainly from Virginia and Georgia, and they set up the winter quarters over here on the hill behind me. And they dug the positions that we're standing in on top of this mountain crest or knob that commands the old Staunton to Parkersburg Turnpike, which you can just see in the background. It is a dirt road today, and it was a dirt road then. It was the main drag between Staunton, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, and Parkersburg, Virginia, now West Virginia, on the Ohio River. This road was the only practical way to move troops across these mountains, which were all virgin timber, never had been timbered, and were impossible to march a body of men and pull the wagons that contained their food, clothing, ammunition, cannon, and so on through a forest. You had to have a road. And so the road was the military lifeline that the Confederates were trying to defend, prevent the Union from going east. They spent the winter here, and they dug these positions on top of this knob. Now, this we're standing in is called a redoubt. It was actually a cannon position. It was also probably where the Confederate commander, Colonel Johnson, stood or planned to stand during the battle. This would hold 2 or 3 field pieces. They would control the road and that ridge line and the ridge line behind us. This knob was surrounded completely by a trench where the troops could stand with their muskets. That trench is still there today. Behind me, further to the south, on the other side of this knob, is a magazine where they kept most of their cannon ammunition, and there are some more gun positions down there for cannon. When the Union commander, General Milroy, finally attacked, he divided his forces. He had about 1,800 men total, and about 950 came up from the south, and the others came along the northern branch of the ridge. Through some happy military accident, both wings of this little army managed to attack the superior Confederate army in the middle at about the same time. Considering they had no radios and no way to communicate between one another, that, as I say, was a minor military miracle. The Confederates, of course, knew they were coming and knew they were in position, but the two-prong attack threw the Confederates off. After a short battle, the Confederates actually retreated, and they retreated to the east along the Staunton-Parkersburg Turnpike. The Union won the battle, and the road to the Shenandoah was now open. The Union took it. The Confederates retreated all the way to Shenandoah Mountain, which is the mountain on the westernmost side of the Shenandoah Valley, and there they dug in again along the crest, blocking the road. The Union troops eventually headed that way and were stopped at the Battle of McDowell by Stonewall Jackson. And so they never actually penetrated the Shenandoah Valley from this direction. The threat that they represented, though, had to always be kept in mind by the Confederate commanders. The Shenandoah was a valuable military resource for food and forage throughout the Civil War. As we stand here and think about the Civil War today, we modern Americans think it could never happen again. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. The original Civil War occurred because there was a political question that the political system that governed the country, representative democracy, could not come to grips with. Slavery was the issue that's precipitated it, but the main underlying issue was the rights of the states and the federal government. This had been left nebulous by the people that created the Constitution. And so it was ultimately decided by guns and bullets because the people in Congress could not agree. They couldn't agree because their constituents couldn't agree. We actually have a similar issue in the country today that could perhaps someday bring on a civil war here, and that issue is illegal immigration. Our representatives in Congress have been totally unable to come to grips with this problem, no doubt because their constituents have been unable to reach any reasonable compromise on this issue. You know, it's just an issue that lays and festers and festers and festers. One hopes it'll never come to civil war, but it might. The governments must be able to solve people's problems or they lose their right to govern. And people throughout history have resorted to arms when that happens. It's something to think about when you stand on these Civil War battlefields and look around and think about the Confederate soldiers who spent the winter here and died like flies, and the Union and Confederate soldiers who fought here that early spring day in 1862.